For coming to this event tonight. My name is Ivan Matthews. I'm one of the real estate development project managers out of the Deputy Mayor's Office for Planning and Economic Development, and I've been tied to Fifth and I for the past 2 years, ever since I've been a project manager. We have a couple other project managers here from our office this evening, Will Lee and Joe Lappin. And I also want to say thank you to the CID for hosting this. Claire was very gracious in offering up her space. And Claire, if you want to stand up for a minute, just quickly introduce yourself and the CID.
Hi, welcome. I'm Claire Lekshak, President of the Mount Vernon Triangle Community Improvement District. Many of you may have worked with Bill McLeod. He has now moved on, and I joined in August. So welcome. Hello to those that have not met before. I look forward to working with you. And if you have any other questions about the CID or the neighborhood, I'm always available either by email or by phone. Thank you.
I'd also like to thank the ANC commissioners for working with me to set this up before the end of the year. So thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you.
This evening we're here to hear the shortlisted teams for Fifth and I. Will, if you turn next slide, please. So the 4 shortlisted teams for the development proposals, they're going to be presenting for approximately 15 minutes each, and then we're asking everybody to hold the questions to the end, and then at that time we can have individual community members stand up, take turns, ask questions, or provide constructive feedback. We really want to see this as an engagement with the community and the development teams, so that when the development teams go back and start working on their best and final proposal they're going to be submitting to our office, they have the most recent, most up-to-date community feedback and have been able to engage the community in a more direct fashion. So tonight, we're going to open with me, and I'll allow the ANC to follow up with me in a couple minutes. The development presentations will go a little bit over an hour. We'll have a question and answer period for about 25 minutes, and then we're going to clear some of the chairs and, as best as we can, stage each one of the development teams in different areas of this space, and they're going to set up boards and be at your disposal to ask any additional questions or provide additional feedback. And for those community members that are not here tonight, we're going to be posting each one of the development proposals on our website, and have asked Marge to continue to collect community comments throughout the first week of January. And then what the ANC has volunteered to do is write a letter to DEMPED identifying what the community's thoughts, concerns, questions are. And I'm going to turn that around and get it out to each one of the development teams as quick as possible to allow each one of those development teams to absorb what the community is asking for and looking for and incorporate that into their BAFO response. Next slide, please. For the remainder of the RFEI selection process, and those of you that have been following this ever since we put it back out early last spring, we're supposed to have selected the development team by now. However, what happened was we received a lot more proposals and responses from the development community than we anticipated. We received 10 proposals. We were really only expecting about half that many, and it took that much time to really go through each proposal because each team had a very well put together proposal. So what we're looking at right now is early next year I will put out to each one of the development teams a notice to start working on their BAFO. Mid-January we will get community feedback that I will send to each one of the development teams, and approximately 6 weeks later we'll ask for each one of the teams to submit their BAFO response back to us. And then the selection recommendation panel will reconvene, and hopefully we will have a selected development team by this coming spring. So before I get into the site and talk a little bit more specifically what we were looking for in the RFEI, I'll allow Commissioner Nigro or Commissioner Maceda to talk for a couple minutes.
Hi everyone, I want to thank the CID for hosting this. I'm Rochelle Nigro, I'm chair of the commission. I want to thank everyone for coming, all the developers and some of our residents here. We're very excited about this project. It's going to be wonderful for Marge's area, and it looks like all the proposals are excellent, so it's going to be a tough choice.
Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it, especially community members. We've been getting together and talking about this project since a while ago.
Almost a year ago.
And when I heard 10 people had submitted bids, I was shocked. I didn't expect it. And then for Ivan to tell me each one was better than the next one, and they had a really hard time developing a short list because all of the proposals at that time were great. So when I saw and heard who the shortlisted people were, I was absolutely excited because for those developers, you and I have worked together over the last year with ideas and community input and things that the community really wants to see. And I want to thank whoever the winner is because each and every one of you took very seriously the community input. Each of you provided for a park, a dog park, or a daycare center, or a community room. So out of 4 of you, whoever wins it will be congratulations, but to the other 3, you guys are great. You have all taken very seriously what this community wanted, and I greatly appreciate that. So good luck to all of you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next slide. To orient everybody to the site specifically, for those that aren't familiar with it, it's on the corner of 5th and I Street Northwest. It's approximately almost 21,000 square feet. It falls into a couple overlay zones, zone C2C. And what we were looking for, next slide please, is a by right, high density, mixed use development. For those of you that are familiar with the history, our office had been in negotiations with a developer on this property for approximately, I think, 4 or 5 years. And the community's ready to see something built there, the district's ready to see something built there. So what we were really looking for was something that could be done by right and maximize the density. We want to obviously maximize the economic value of the district. That's something that our office looks for out of economic development, create employment opportunities, and we're flexible on the method, whether it's a ground lease or fee simple acquisition, and have an accelerated development timeline. The desired development characteristics, we're looking for something that's high architectural design and quality. It's a gateway location into the Mount Vernon community, economically viable, residential rental or condominium component that includes affordable housing. And that was something that we looked at because it falls into housing priority area A. And in order for us, what we saw was to maximize the density, there was going to need to be some kind of residential rental component or condominium component. And that was one of the initial thoughts that the community, that the ANC provided to us, was that they wanted to see some kind of residential component into the program. Since then, a couple development teams have proposed alternative uses to a strict ground floor retail and rental or condominium project, and so that you're going to hear a couple of those proposals this evening. Robust local and small business neighborhood serving retail, trans-oriented development, and of course incorporate the community desires into the development program. Next slide, please. Did you just go one? Okay. So something that came out of our discussions with the community, the Office of Planning, and the development teams was the community really wanted to see a park in this location. Unfortunately, with our office being the office it is, with creating jobs and tax revenue, we could not see a viable solution as keeping the entire lot a park space or turning the entire lot into a park space. So the development teams, the Office of Planning, and the community came to us and said, well, what if we suggest a development proposal or development program on the site itself and work to maximize the adjacent parks and turn those more into community-friendly parks. And these 2 parks right here are actually owned by the National Park Service. So the district has no jurisdiction over those 2 parks. So what our office, the Executive Office of the Mayor, is doing along with the Office of Planning is we are working to transition those parks from the National Park Service to the district. We haven't quite figured out what the method is going to be for that, whether it's transferred to the district parks or another entity, whether it's managed by the CID. That is something we're still working out, but what we want to do is pull those parks out from control of National Park Service, who I think is underutilizing those parks for the community, and create a community-based amenity that meets the community's desires for having a park in the immediate vicinity. So as I mentioned, 10 teams initially responded to the RFEI, 1 withdrew. And many of those teams had multiple development program options, which also complicated and extended the amount of time it took for us to review each one of the proposals. We selected four teams. All those teams are present this evening, and you will hear presentations from them. And of course, we learned all this stuff in kindergarten, but I just want to remind everybody, be respectful of each other. The development teams have put a lot of time and energy into this. Hold all questions until the question and answer period. I have note cards up front here. If you'd like, I can hand them out, so as you're hearing the presentations and you think of a question or feedback, you can write it down on the note card. And then raise your hand and wait for me to ask you to stand and ask the questions and provide feedback. And of course, focus the comments on constructive feedback to the developers and to the ANC, because they really want, and we would really want, the community interaction to be constructive and allow the development teams to go back and incorporate the feedback into their BAFOs. Next slide. So as I mentioned, my name is Ivan Matthews. I'm DemPed Project Manager. This is my contact information. I have some additional business cards by the coffee maker there by the door. All of our updates will be posted at this website. If you don't want to write the whole thing down, you just write this, and then it's pretty self-explanatory on how to get to exactly where all of our RFPIs are at. Let's go back. So at this time, are there any questions before I turn it over to each one of the development teams? Okay. All right. Well then, we'll start with Ackridge, and I will give Ackridge a 2-minute and a 1-minute heads up. And Ackridge team, if you like, either I can turn the slides or somebody else from your team can turn the slides. So we'll give them a couple minutes to set up. The note cards?
Yeah, let me hold it for you in case.
It's all right. I'm trying. Yeah, no one knows.
He texted me.
He said he called you today.
He asked, but I don't think he heard the message.
I left it the other day, so he doesn't check his voicemail. But that's okay. We can-
Okay, floor is yours.
All right, good evening, everyone. Our team is very pleased and excited to have the opportunity to present our project to the Mount Vernon Triangle community at large. We spent back last summer a lot of time working with various members of the community to get ideas, get feedback and input on our scheme, and we feel that we've been able to incorporate a lot of those ideas and present a project that we feel will be a great addition to this neighborhood. And moving forward, we are pleased to hopefully continue to work with the neighborhood to enhance this project and work with the district as well to, as I mentioned, make this project really a gateway to the Mount Vernon Triangle neighborhood. Next slide, please. Our development team is led by JAG, or Jefferson Apartment Group. JAG has developed an extensive amount of projects up and down the East Coast, over 18,000 residential units, but more important, maybe more relevant, are the projects that they've done in Washington, and particularly many around this neighborhood, from Jefferson Marketplace up 7th Street in the Shaw neighborhood, which is going through its reemergence currently, to 14W in the U Street, 14th Street area, and Jefferson at Pink Quarter, very instrumental in the enhancement and revitalization of that Pink Quarter neighborhood when it was built. So very extensive experience in multifamily development. Next slide. Company I work for, which is Ackridge, we are celebrating our 40th year next month. And while we do a lot of projects in the Washington region, overall, we have focused for a lot of those years on development on the east end of downtown, all the way to this neighborhood. And from projects like Gallagher Place, which we were very proud of, and its ability to help really take advantage of the Verizon Center and be a key project in making that area just the bustling, vibrant neighborhood it is today, and taking those ideas and translating that to Half Street and our Burnham Place project, the first one by the ballpark, baseball stadium, and Burnham by the rail tracks to Union Station. The idea of these vibrant neighborhoods is something that we've been doing for a very long time. Next. The Jarvis Companies has been an integral partner on a lot of developments, key developments in the city, from City Center, which is getting ready to deliver, essentially delivering now, and Progression Place, also in the Shaw neighborhood on 7th Street, which delivered earlier this year, to a project in their pipeline getting ready to start soon, which is Heinz School by the Eastern Market. They've been integral in the partnership on those developments, which have been great addition to the various neighborhoods that they're sited in. Next. And then finally, our last team member, Esikoff and Associates. All the development members on our team have worked on various projects with Phil and his office, and we think that his approach and creativity to design, his use of materials, the way he shapes forms and masses is magnificent. And as you guys that live in the neighborhood are probably aware of a lot of his buildings, because many are very close to here, we feel that given the constraints of design in Washington, D.C. with the height limits and so forth, he's done a great job and creative job of creating buildings that last the test of time. Next slide. So now on to our project. Our project our concept is a 13-story residential multifamily building with about 208 units with about 8,000 square feet of ground floor retail. Around half of that will be dedicated to between a community gathering space and a daycare center. The other half dedicated to market retail, perhaps a restaurant in the corner space. We have, of those units, we have 10% of those to be affordable, so about 21 units. And we're striving for LEED Silver certification for the building. Now I'll let Phil talk about more in depth about our design concept.
Well, my wife and I moved here in 1979. She grew up here, we're both architects. And all of us, both of us have been very involved in architecture, planning, preservation of the district over that time. And I've had the really opportunity to do a lot of buildings downtown that give me a chance to explore the aspects of the Washington's plan, its climate, its local culture, and its craft traditions in the buildings that I've been doing. And so this building represents that thought process. We have engaging with it at the ground level with retail, and then there's an area here where we pull the building up and there's some balconies there, and that's a way to create sort of a psychological opportunity for people to inhabit a building, and that's how you establish scale. Even though a building may be big in terms of quantification, its size may be big, its scale can still be humane and small. And so when people look at the tops of our buildings, like you do on 401 and 425 Mass Avenue, or 400 Mass Avenue, or 1010 Mass Avenue, you can see a place where you could imagine having dinner. And so you see yourself projected into that space. And so it doesn't become 130 feet, it becomes a place to have dinner. And because you can engage with our buildings that way, it makes them very personable, and sort of almost like they're personified as opposed to being impersonal. And then we have sort of a nice engagement with the sky up here, but also sort of an organization of the bay projections that the district allows. Create sort of a rhythm and a readability to the facade so that people can understand they live here or here or here. They're not part of an overall agglomeration of skin. And then we have the setback that provides an opportunity for terraced gardens at the top and defining the urban space of Washington. One of the reasons people feel there's not enough space in Washington is that we don't define the space well enough, because over 50% of Washington is actually unbuilt space. It's our streets public squares. One of those squares, Eastern Market Metro Plaza, is a project that my partner and wife Amy Weinstein is working on redoing right now, along with the Heinz School project nearby. And then along here we have a taller area where the zoning code allows you to go to 130 feet. So we're trying to make virtue out of vice, if you consider the zoning code vice, by creating sort of sculptural events at the corners of our buildings. Next. And then we've also been doing a green and recreational roof terraces for the last, well, more than 20 years. That's sort of upper Washington. And when we lived in the Woodward, where we raised the family for over a course of 30 years, we found that these kinds of roof terraces are really the backyard of the people in the building, and a great opportunity to see Washington and its look across other buildings, hopefully buildings that are nice as this might be, and then the full line. So we have like 10 buildings downtown now with swimming pools and the roof. Next. And this shows the sort of the care with which we put together the fabric of our building. So a bit like in couture, you know, people will actually think about what fabric they're using before they decide on the cut of the jacket they're wearing. And so we like to really carefully place every single brick in our facade and think about how we're going to make this opening in the facade, and how the brick courses out, and how that's actually trimmed and hemmed like a good garment. And it also provides an opportunity then for people who work on these buildings to have a meaningful contribution to the city. Those people are our neighbors. And providing that kind of meaningful work and, let's say, jobs that provide salaries that make housing affordable for people is sort of a goal of this. Next. And when we were asked about how to enhance the public spaces around here, I thought back to Eastern Market, where they've now put special paving around the Eastern Market area to make it sort of a street that can be used at different times, that says to people driving through there, this is not necessarily exclusively for cars, that this is actually an urban space, and at times it may be repurposed for street fairs or some kind of other activity. And then making this into a sculptural modern landscape that can be used for play, but not necessarily seen as a playground with monkey bars in it, but a more creative place for both adult and child age group play. The floors are simple. We look at every single unit living in a building where we went from a one-bedroom to a two-bedroom den, and also had an efficiency. We understand that no matter what size unit you have to have a place that's very comfortable and quiet, a place where you can read the paper on Sunday morning and have some peace and solitude in there, and have a nice setup, a furnishable room, a good view up and down the street. And so we have a very personal view of designing the building from the inside out, as well as the urban design agenda, designing it from the outside in. On the ground floor, of course, the corner is best used as retail. That's been done for about 60 years or more. And then we took the residential unit entrance, put it back here. And of course, all the parking and loading come off the alley system. Next. Thank you.
Great. It goes without saying, community feedback was integral in our design and what we came up with to propose today. So we'll walk through these. It's a little bit dry, but I just want to make sure we hit on everything where we had feedback. We met with Marge, Michelle, and the ANC early on, met with Claire's predecessor at the SID, and then had follow-up meetings with everyone, after our initial presentation to Ivan and his group. The themes were pretty prevalent. I think we're going to see it throughout the presentations today. Open space, and that was improving the open space that's either around the site, providing active uses on the site and addressing that. Create affordable dwelling units and maintain those affordable dwelling units in the community. Promoting local business, whether that's the daycare that we're proposing for our site, or also offering some other options for lower rent for community serving retail. Flexible gathering space. So what we heard is we want places to gather both private and public. So the public is really hit by our open space and our park space. Private is really the offering of community gathering space. So part of our program that you'll see is 1,000 square feet that we'll offer at no cost to the ANC, the community groups, and civic associations that need to use that space.
So park, so this is the big thing that we heard about. Our initial proposal didn't have enough open space, usable space, and park space. And so what we did is really spent more time looking at how we could do improvements for the parks across the street, and how we could actually integrate our public space into those parks. You saw that a little bit on the slide that Phil presented where we were using certain paving materials and improvements. There's two things we want to do here. We want to have money aside. We have a relationship with the National Park Service through the Akers team and everything they've done with the National Mall. So depending on what happens with Ivan's group and how they position that, we are prepared to enter into an LOI and work with those guys and have money set aside to improve those parks with a plan. And we also want to set aside money for, whether it's a SID or a private fund, to also have money to acquire park space and improve existing park space that's already in the neighborhood. So progressing the plan that Phil showed sort of in conceptual, so what are we thinking for this? So really it's focusing on how do we activate the streetscape on both 5th and I. Some of that's with the retail space and outdoor seating. Some of that's with creating more of a linear park, both on our side of the street on I Street and transferring that over to the other side of I Street at Million Park. It's creating a gateway. So what we heard throughout the feedback is how do we create a gateway? So some of that is the architecture that Phil creates. Other ways we can do that is public art and creating sort of this gateway of interest with the park across the street. We talked about specialty paving, so how can we integrate the two spaces together using specialty pavers, working with DDOT to have the ability to shut down the street at nights, weekends for special events, whether that's a flea market or a farmer's market or a concert series that happens on Friday night. And then really activating the space that's there today. It's underutilized. So looking at where are the active ways without really cornering it off as a private children's area or playground, but are there ways to work with the grading and certain public arts so that we can actually make that a better space. With that, just in closing, we're obviously excited to be here today to present our plan. We hope that we've hit the major issues with the community, open up the feedback at either in a formal setting or after this, and we'll go from there. Thank you. Eagles.
Okay, thank you. First, I'd like to say thank you for having us come. Don't do the video yet.
So slides first.
No, video first. After.
After you, okay, well, exactly.
Again, thank you for giving us the opportunity to present to you what we propose for the site. My name is Skip Walker, and I'm the local development partner with the People's Corporation. I've known Don for almost 10 years now, and I'm very excited for this development opportunity. I would love to go through all of the slides myself, but Don is the best at it, and after I sit down, Don's going to come up and we're going to show a video presentation of what Don believes is the best for this site, as well as his history in Washington, D.C. If we're honored to be selected, okay, I would be the liaison between you and the integral part of the development process. But like I said, I would love to go through the slides, but since we have Don here, I think he's the best one to do it. So please.
I was born in Washington, D.C. In fact, I was a second-generation Washingtonian. And what's interesting is I can remember as a child, the site that we're looking at 5th and I Street, was a parking lot. And my father worked as a federal government worker at 5th and G Street, so a couple blocks away. And so he would park on that parking lot. And I would sometimes our company with institutional depth and knowledge of